The technical phrase soul ties is never found in the Bible. We're trying to describe a relationship that is extremely deep, typically between a guy and a girl. The language of one flesh in the Hebrew mindset was so much more than just physicality. Once again, it's pointing to emotion and spirituality as well. Know how you're wired. And to the level that you're wired, you want to be careful and wise that in discernment, you don't step into types of activities and engagement that's going to start to open the door to a type of knitting and connectivity that is premature.
It doesn't take the other person's permission or compliance for you to knit and latch.
All I know is the best thing is to be wise about how you pace a dating relationship. You never hear people saying, I just so regret spending the extra few months getting to know them. But you hear the inverse.
If you're using the phrase soul ties, but you're weaponizing them against people or you're weaponizing against yourself, just erase it.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. It's unhelpful.
Are one of the most confusing things in the Christian dating world. What are they? Are they actually real? Today, we're going to break it down because this is a hot topic when you get in the Christian dating world. You hear it all the time. Oh, you must have a soul tie. Oh, you can't do that because then you're going to get a soul tie. Well, we have an expert here who knows a lot about the Bible, more probably than JJ and I, maybe. His name is Joel Mudamalle, and we have him here today, and we're so excited. Joel, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. So excited to be with y'all.
Let's go, man.
Did I do your name right?
You crushed my name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
crazy.
my
I was like,
goodness.
in my mind, I'm like, am I going to do this the
No,
right
it's
way?
so good.
Bro, I just have to
stressed.
say, I love you
Oh, man.
so much. I just
Got the
admire
bromance
you.
already.
No, I just admire and respect you. And that's before I knew that you love football as much as you do.
Oh, man.
So
100%. I'm a nerd through and through. So pretty much my wife gets so stressed out because anything I commit myself to, I'm deep on the research for. So fantasy football season has begun and my team is looking pretty good.
he
I'm
sat
2-0
by
right now.
Randy Moss on the plane the
I
other
don't know
day.
who that is at all.
Just the greatest wide
Yeah.
receiver to ever play the game of football. But
Is he
no big
still
deal.
playing or he's retired?
He's
He's
retired.
like definitely Taylor Swift status of football.
Yeah.
Okay. But why?
That's a good cultural
I
connect.
don't think
Thanks.
that, like, what about the other guy, the big quarterback guy,
Tom Brady?
Yeah. He's the one that everyone knows.
Well,
Tom Brady threw touchdown passes
Yeah.
to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
Randy Moss played for the
yeah.
Patriots for
so
a
he's
couple
got
seasons.
amazing stories. So
Well, another fun fact is I actually followed your wife for years.
Oh, gosh.
I never knew that you guys were, like, you were connected. Then I followed you. I found out who you were.
This is actually my favorite story.
And I'm like, wow, this guy's really smart. And then one day I was like, oh my gosh, these two people that I follow are married.
I know.
It was the craziest thing. This theologian guy and this hilarious woman on the internet called Almost Indian Wife. I was like, wait, they're connected? This is so crazy.
It's
So,
like, it's
there you
actually
go.
my favorite thing because people will either find me first and then find Brit,
Yeah.
or people will find Brit first and then somehow land in my channel. And my stuff is like deep theology,
Yes.
some fantasy football, just like that kind of stuff. But Brit is like the chaos of a family of 6,
Exactly.
And I'm Indian, she's white. We've
Yeah.
got this intercultural, marriage, biracial kids. And so it's just a lot of fun.
How old is your youngest daughter?
She's 5.
Okay,
MJ.
so I started following like right before she was born, so like
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yep.
And followed her for a while. It was probably in COVID is when I found her.
That's exactly, probably.
Yeah, and then find you a few years later, and I'm like, wait, yeah. Anyway, it's just so funny.
Like
You gotta
sometimes,
find her account.
sometimes people will be like, to her, right? They'll be like, what's it like being married to a theologian? Do you guys just talk about like deep Bible stuff all the
Right.
time? Like
Yes.
you're always like memorizing scripture together and and Brit just starts laughing and she's like, if you want to see what like our real life just looks like, just go online and you can see it. And I'll do the same because people are like, do you just are constantly like, and I'm like, just watch Brit's social and you'll see what real life looks like with 3 boys under the age of 12 and then a little girl who's 5.
I do the same thing. I just let Kate kind of just paint the picture of her life.
Right.
I'll just let her post anywhere and everywhere. And like, that's nice. I'm glad one of us is doing it.
That's
Like,
right.
If you
But
want
the
to keep
thing
up,
that I
follow
actually
her.
want, bringing it back to dating real quick, what I love about that is you don't have to have everything like aligned in terms of like, she may not be a theologian and you're a theologian and you guys only talk about theology together.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a good segue to like the dating conversation because You don't need to have every single perfect thing aligned and interest aligned to be able to be together. You know, like you love football. I am in the fantasy league for the first time ever.
That's
Let's
crazy.
go.
But I
That's
still
huge.
don't
She's
know
got
what
a
I'm
great
doing.
team
I
too,
still have
man.
no idea. I
She's
still
locked
don't know
in.
what's
I
happening.
want to see the team.
No, she's locked
Except
in. Yeah.
for Malik Neighbors did throw a
She's got
really good one. Or
Neighbors.
no, he
Yeah.
touched down. He's not a thrower. He's a
Receiver.
receiver. There you go.
Yeah, and it was a bomb. It was like vintage Wilson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
that
back.
was insane.
He's
this
balling
year.
out.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wrap on fantasy football because we can talk about that all day. All right, let's just jump in.
Soul ties. So thanks for inviting me to just talk about, just very nonchalant, like,
Yeah.
no big deal. We're going to
Casual.
jump from fantasy football to soul ties in the Bible. That's
Well,
right.
like you have a book coming out. We were talking about it before we were recording. There's just 2, 3, 4, 5 just big loaded words, terms, phrases that we use in kind of the Christian world that we just kind of like generally use. If I ask someone to define it or point in the Bible where it came from, there's like nothing.
They don't
Right,
know.
like-
They don't know how to explain it.
And you just wrote an entire book on divorce. That would be a huge one. God hates divorce.
Yeah.
Like that would be top 5.
Yeah.
I would say soul ties is absolutely top 5
Yeah.
within the single and Christian world of dating and marriage. And yet, and I didn't do any research for this episode because I want to offload it to you.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I'm like, I'm in that boat. Like if you ask me to define what a soul tie is, I'm not really sure if I could point to anything within scripture off the top of my head. I'd be like, this is what it is. This is how they're
Yeah.
formed. This is the purpose of them. Like I have an idea of how they could be formed, but I'm just going to give it straight to you. Is a soul tie biblical? How would you describe one? And for someone who's single and dating, who's struggling and stuck and thinks they have a quote soul tie,
Yeah.
what would you tell them?
I think one of the things that is helpful in our world is when you can take phrases and kind of use a phrase to wrap up a tension or a problem that we're kind of facing or feeling, right? And so I think soul ties is one of those things that's like such a helpful phrase in our just normal human vernacular to be able to be like, man, I'm connected to somebody and there's a deep level of connection, but that relationship is no longer there, but I still feel a deep level of connection.
Right.
And there's this tension, there's an honest tension of trying to figure out why is that? And if you're a Christian, you're trying to look for, hopefully, a biblical answer for these tensions, these problems that you're facing. And so on the one hand, I just want to start by saying like, I'm probably going to say some things that might be challenging, might be new to some folks, but I want to start with just from a posture of like, I understand. Like, I get it because we all want clarity. We were talking earlier, JJ, I think the Bible is often giving us more principle than it's giving us policies. And sometimes we just want policy.
Yeah.
It would make our life so much easier, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I
just
joke,
tell
it's
me
like
A, B, and C.
100%.
Yeah.
If A plus B could always equal C, then we're set.
Yep.
But I think what the Bible is often trying to do is actually help us to understand what A actually is, what B actually is, so we can make sense of what C actually is, and to give us a 360-degree view. And so you might be shocked to hear, but the actual phrase, the technical phrase, soul ties, is never found in the Bible. Now,
Wow.
we've got a challenge though, right? Because someone right now could say, but Joel, the Trinity, the word the Trinity is never found in the Bible, right? To which I'd be like, yeah, you're right. And so how do we navigate this idea that has kind of taken on a life of its own in the Christian world with what the Bible actually says? So my boss and dear mentor, her name's Lisa Turkhurst. I know y'all know her.
Yeah,
Lisa's like one of the best Bible teachers, hands down. And she taught me this kind of concept that we kind of came together as we study the Bible, which is called the law of first mentions. And so the law of first mentions is an idea where you want to go back to the first time a biblical topic or a theme or idea is imaged or said or presented in the scriptures. And we find the concept of soul ties actually throughout scripture in some significant ways. The challenge is trying to understand this concept in its biblical context first, so then we can build the bridge of application to like, how should we understand it today?
Right, because we start with today, and what I even was tempted to define it in today's terms, but you're saying like if we have that whiteboard, let's go ahead and stop and pause and just erase it and start in the Bible in the first law, the first mentions.
Yeah.
I like that.
And especially because it's not a biblical term, I guess we have to define what are we trying to describe.
Yeah.
Because then we can't really even go to the Bible to know what to look for if we don't even know what we're describing, right?
Yeah, so I think we're trying to describe, and Kate, I'm curious what you think, but like for me, it feels like we're trying to describe a relationship that is extremely deep, typically between a guy and a girl.
Yep. Yeah, and I would say it's caused probably some kind of very deep connection. I feel like you especially know that you might have a soul tie, and you correct me if I'm wrong as we go along in this interview, if the relationship ends and you cannot get over them. You just cannot move forward.
Yeah.
Which I have a whole history of tons and tons and tons of rejection. And then you add like different sexual layers into that, which maybe we can touch on. But, then that brings a whole nother layer to the equation. And so, some sort of very deep, I would call it emotional, spiritual bond that, and maybe even physical, that when that relationship ends, it feels almost impossible to get past that person.
Yeah, that's so good. So let's turn to Genesis chapter 2. I'm pretty convinced that everything starts in Genesis.
Yeah,
particularly Genesis
love it.
1, 2, and
Genesis
3.
is my favorite book in the Bible.
And I've said kind of before, I'd say it here, that one of the challenges I think when it comes to just human-to-human relationships, this is called Anthropology, our study of humanity, is often we want to start in Genesis 3 with the fall of humanity.
Right.
But I actually think that's imprecise and unhelpful because we start from a place of failure, but really that's not the place where the biblical text starts. The biblical text starts with the beauty of humanity,
right?
The beauty of creation,
So
the
true.
ideal of what a man and a woman should be, right?
Yeah.
And so I think our anthropology has to start there. So then we can make sense of the tragedy of the fall and we can understand the story of scripture of making humanity whole again, which in my view is a return to the Edenic ideal,
Right.
you know?
The Genesis 1 and 2.
100%.
Right.
100%. So in Genesis 2, verse 24, this is like such a famous verse, like so much so you don't even have to be a Christian to know this verse, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the one that said at every wedding. It's like, yeah, this is the jam, right? It says, this is why I'm reading from the Christian Standard Bible. It says, this is why a man leaves his father and mother and bonds. If you're taking notes or highlighting or circling, I'd circle, highlight, make a note of that English word bonds. So this is why a man leaves his father and mother and bonds with his wife, and they become one flesh. Both the man and his wife were naked, yet felt no shame.
Yeah.
And why I want to start with the ideal here is because this English word bonds, it comes from a Hebrew word, davak. The B is like a V sound, so you could say dabak, but it's pronounced davak. But it has an idea of to cling to become united to, which is why CSB uses the word bond. And what's so interesting here is in the context of Eden with one man and one woman, I'm trying to be very precise with my language,
Right.
with one man and one woman, they come together in a holy union, and that holy union is presented by this phraseology of they become one flesh. The one flesh is intimate language of sexuality of a husband and wife that intimately know each other. And in so doing, this physical action actually creates a whole human connection. What do I mean by that? A whole human is a person who is made up of their physicality, their emotions, and their spiritual nature.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
So the whole of a human includes your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual being.
Yes.
In this moment, when one man and one woman come together, it's a unification of the complexity of the whole of our humanity with another complex human being that now become one flesh. And the language of one flesh in the Hebrew mindset was so much more than just physicality. Once again, it's pointing to emotion and spirituality as well.
It's like one distinct, new, unique being is formed.
Yeah.
And there's no other being that could ever form that being because it's two unique individuals.
Coming together.
But so this is also the introduction of our sexuality as well. Like, so what you're saying is a soul tie specifically, if we're pointing as this as maybe the first, sexuality in the physical act, which I would say is a sacrament. I think my favorite way to view sex is it's a sacrament, meaning it's a physical ceremony that represents an invisible reality, right? That's why communion's so powerful. And anytime you say sacrament, it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
So the invisible reality of sex and what they're doing and what they created is this amazing full picture of a being, a unique being that we call one flesh.
Yeah. 100%. The interesting thing, so this is where our language, my friend Jim Kress, who is one of my co-hosts on Therapy and Theology.
We're just with him.
Were you with Jim?
Yeah.
You were with Jimbo?
Yeah.
Oh
Love
my
him.
gosh.
At WindShape, actually.
No way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can take a picture and send it to Jimbo later. Jim's one of my favorite. I'm getting very close to just start plagiarizing you, just so you know. I'm not going to mention you anymore. Jim has this great quote where he says, our words frame our reality. Our words frame our reality. There's actually a poet who once wrote, the words we use build the worlds that we live in. So the words we use build the worlds that we live in. And so I really care about the precision of our words. Part of what I want to do as a theologian is I want to rightly understand words in their appropriate context. And this is why I pointed out that Hebrew word davak, because the way that it's used elsewhere in scripture gives us some framing and understanding of what we're supposed to be thinking about that word, you know? And so, for instance, that same word, davak, it's actually used in Job 41:9 to talk about the joining together of the scales of a crocodile.
Oh, interesting.
So let's just think about the imagery, right?
Yeah.
So the coming together of the scales of a crocodile. The same kind of corresponding word, so the same kind of root word, it's used in 1 Kings 22:34 to describe the soldering of scales on a breastplate.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Are you starting to
That's
see?
like a forging.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my favorite. It's a forging.
It's a forging. Now, but okay, think about crocodiles and think about breastplates. What is the singular goal for the crocodile scales and the breastplate?
Protection.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow.
So underneath is vulnerability. Underneath is intimacy. Underneath is honesty. And then the outside is protection because of what is underneath, right? Vulnerability comes from the Latin word vulnare, which means to be wounded.
Yeah, to be woundable.
To be woundable, the verb, to be woundable. And so I just think it's so fascinating that the first time we see this Hebrew word, it's shown of a man and a woman who come together in the context of a marriage, essentially, is the English phrase that we would use for covenant, which is the Hebrew idea underneath it. And there's a sense of protection. There's a sense of safety and security. That's the intent of this knitting together of these two people, right? So with that in mind, now just take the human reality of it. Wow. For that to be ripped apart, I mean, it kind of starts to make sense, doesn't it? Yeah. Why there might be wounding, why there might be this difficulty to get over it, why there might be pain and turmoil associated with it, and probably why I would strongly suggest that we be incredibly wise on the front end with who we bond with.
Yes.
And the nature in which we bond. So just a couple more like nerdy Bible things to help us just get the biblical theology
this is
of
like
it.
The foundation.
Remember, because somebody could be like, Joel, you're proof texting. You just got one idea here, you know? So we want to see how this develops later on. The idea of this relationship is also used in a negative way with that same Hebrew word, davak. So this is the example of Jacob's daughter, Dinah, where she gets raped. Right? She gets defiled. And it says that in Genesis 34:3-4, that the person who raped her, that he loved her, that he was obsessed with her, that he wanted to bond with her in that way. But notice what happens here. The bonding is one-sided. It's not mutual. It's not two people coming together. And so now you see a misuse of the understanding. Now think about the narrative structure of what happens. The result of this becomes violence and murder. The brothers get ticked off. a innocent woman is defiled, right? It actually creates this weird story arc where her brothers lie, and then these dudes get all circumcised, and then it's in the midst of their circumcision that they come in and murder it is a wild story. But notice how it all unravels. It all unravels because I would call this an unholy, a sinful, a selfish union that was never intended to be.
Yeah, I was reading a commentary. It's just grotesque. You think about like Siamese twins, not that Siamese twins are grotesque, but you think about that forging. So you're saying whether it's voluntary or not, even in the saddest case, it's still one flesh. Like that is...
I'm saying that there's a consequence to it.
Yeah.
And this is where I think we should have a lot of empathy and compassion. And I'm trying to create a little bit of the perspective to understand the seriousness of this, to show that God has always intended for this to be something that is honored and cherished and not taken lightly.
Yeah.
Just a couple more examples. We find this in Deuteronomy 13:6. I'll just read these. It says this: if your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or your daughter, or the wife you embrace, or your friend, this is super interesting, who is as your own soul.
Your friend who is as your own soul.
Okay.
Wow.
So this is interesting because now we separate outside of sexual intimacy
Right.
into brother to brothers, almost sibling intimacy.
Yeah.
Same idea that's being presented. It's a soul knitting.
Yeah.
So now, again, we're just kind of stacking the information to start with. We can start to put categories together. You have one category of sexual intimacy, but now you have another category of a type of sibling friendship intimacy that is in some way equivalent to the sexual intimacy without the sexuality.
Right.
Which in our culture, we're so horrible at this.
Oh man, this is the one that makes you so sad.
Yeah. So there's a little, I'm Indian. Did you guys know that? I'm Indian.
Didn't know.
I know.
Actually, thanks for telling us.
Yeah. So I was in India.
We don't see color.
Oh, thanks, bro. I
JJ,
appreciate
stop.
that. He's joking. I was in India like 6 or 7 years ago, and I was with my cousins, and we're walking. And my cousin grabbed my hand, to hold my hand, and I was like, "Yo."
You're like, whoa.
It's like, stop screwing around. We're in public, right? Like, what are you doing? It's like, what are you
Should be
talking
a
about?
photo taken of
Right. He's like, no. He's like, no, give me your hand. What are you doing? Stop holding my hand. He's like, Joey. And so my family calls me Joey. Joey, what are you talking about? You're my first cousin. You're my brother. Like, no. And then we had to sit down and talk about it. In the Indian culture, when you see two dudes walking on the street, like this is the main city of Hyderabad, and you see them holding hands, or they'll do the thumb, the finger, whatever, that's a signal to the world that that's your boy. Not in a sexual way, but as in we'll go to battle together. You mess with JJ, you're going to mess with me.
Yeah. Wow.
That's one of the homies. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
In our culture, we don't understand that in the Western world, but in the Eastern worlds, it is so prevalent. And
Wow.
I think this is one of those areas that sin has so messed up our view.
Man.
Our view of same, a guy to guy, girl to girl kind of intimacy that is so biblical, so pure, so good, that's void of any sexual, innuendos.
Yeah.
But we live in a culture that wants to sexualize everything, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, it makes me so sad because I'm like, the spirit of David and Jonathan is so lost.
Yep.
And you know what's funny? It's hilarious. The only time, at least in Western society, in my culture today, where I can think of a man holding another man's hand and it's admired by other men, not disrespected, is football. Pregame walkout, walk into the coin toss, state championship.
Yeah.
Do they hold hands?
Yeah, the guys walk out to go flip the coin, and it's four guys holding hands walking to the logo at the half of the field.
We have our contextualized versions of this, right? So which again shows us that there's something here at the heart level. It's just being expressed physically in different ways. I play basketball, hooped on Tuesday,
Nice.
And
how'd you play?
And I hit a three.
Yeah, let's go.
I wrote a book on humility, but there you go. I hit a three. And I'm walking away, and one of my buddies on my team just smacked my rear end. Just smacked it. I'm didn't think twice about it. Right? And again, it's that contextualization of like, oh, that's so applicable. That's so understandable on the context of a basketball court. And so this is why context matters. The context of the scriptures matter. The context of words matter. And JJ, you just mentioned it. So that's my next example is David and Jonathan. Right? 1 Samuel 18:1. As soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, this is David, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David.
I just read this yesterday.
And Jonathan loved him as his own soul.
Yes.
Now, I want to be so clear. There is nothing about the Hebrew grammar here that suggests any kind of sexual intimacy. Once again, that is imposing our modern 21st century worldview onto an ancient text, which just isn't present. The concept kind of goes on, but there's one more that I think is really kind of costly, and this is 1 Kings 11. This is the story of Solomon. It says in verses 1 through 4, King Solomon loved many foreign women, in addition to Pharaoh's daughter, so Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women from the nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, you must not intermarry with them, and they must not intermarry with you, because, here's the big reason, because they will turn your heart away to follow their gods.
Okay.
The issue is not the cultural intermarriage. The issue is the gods of the nations that they follow and the issue of idolatry. Okay? So that's the issue here. And then he says this, to these women, Solomon was deeply attached, in love. He had 700 wives who were princesses and 300 who were concubines, and they turned his heart away.
700 is wild anyway.
Is wild.
1,000 total.
Right?
Crazy.
When Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away to follow other gods. He was not wholeheartedly devoted to the Lord, his God, as his father David had been. And so here you find an example of, once again, giving a kind of knitting of your body, of your heart, of your soul, of your spirit with someone and not being intentional about it, which the result is your heart now is compromised.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to Solomon. His heart turns away to the God. Here's a guy who started so well with such wisdom, such discernment. At the very end, it's like the greatest irony.
Yeah.
He fails his own discernment.
Yeah.
You know? And so this is, and then you have Jesus also. I think that's important. In the New Testament, we find examples of this kind of kindred and close affection. Jesus and Lazarus, Jesus and John. Jesus calls John his beloved disciple, right? John, I kind of think John's just being honest because a lot of times like, is this a humble brag?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think John just like, dude, I don't know how to say it. Like, how else do I say that we're best friends? So I'll just say like, I was the beloved one, you know? And we see this actually in the last scene where Jesus gives his mom to John to take care of, right? Which actually is kind of fascinating because Mary, the tradition has, ends up in the city of Ephesus at the end, and then John ends up writing and all this other stuff. But anyways, it's just a fascinating detail that you even see a level of intimacy and love between Jesus and his disciples. But even amongst his disciples, he's got 12. Then he's got 4, Peter, James, John, Philip,
right? And then there's
there.
Even one.
Then there's 3, and then there's 1.
And that's like the disciple who, I mean, I just love the imagery of like he laid on Jesus, like he lounged.
Yeah, he rested on him.
Like you think about the even little boy, it's just like this little boy tenderness.
This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Kate and I love BetterHelp. By far and away, it's one of our favorite sponsors of the show because it is one of the best things that singles can do in their singleness. People are always asking, hey, how can I invest in myself? How can I prepare for marriage? I'm like, hey, it's very, very simple. Go to therapy. Please go to therapy. It's by far and away one of the best things you can do because you're not just fixing your problems for today, you're investing in yourself as a person, as a partner, as a husband, as a future wife. Go to therapy, I beg you. BetterHelp is amazing because they do all the match work for you. So you can just simply focus on your therapy goals. You take a questionnaire, they match you. They have 12 years of doing this, okay? They're even better at their job than Kate and I, all right? They should be doing matchmaking for therapy and for dating. They're amazing. So go to betterhelp.com/HOD. That's betterhelp.com/HOD for 10% off your first month.
So I love that that picture because soul tie, basically the assumption that we started with was it's all of this kind of knitting, but we just can't help but involve sexuality. And the beauty of what you pointed out is there's absolutely soul ties that involve no sexuality at all.
Yeah.
Which means for somebody dating, they may not even be engaging in sexual things, honestly, unless we want to clarify that them holding hands or a potential kiss would be them dabbling in that area. I would be interested on how we define that. But that can still be formed. A soul tie could still be potentially formed between a man and a woman in a relationship through emotional and spiritual means.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So I think what I'm trying to show is people are like, wait, this feels complicated.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So once again, my wife and I, Britt and I have been married for 16 years. In 16 years, there's some very important things I've learned. I am not a runner for fun or a walker for no reason, right? That's not my jam. My wife, that girl loves to walk for no reason all the time. It can be 110 degrees outside in Charlotte. She's like, you ready for a walk? I'm like, no, I'm going to die.
But every video I see you in, you're walking.
That's because I love my wife. That is because I love my wife. Like, I have to learn to die to myself. And that is me dying, my friends. I am dying. Yes. And so like here we are on this walk, but this walk ends up becoming really important because in the walk for Britt, this is where that soul knitting is happening. There's nothing like physically intimate about that moment.
Right.
I might try to get a little frisky every now and then, but she's like, nope. It's like we're talking.
Yeah.
She's asking me about what's going on in my life. I'm asking her about hers, what's happening on social, and so you have this emotional connectiveness that for her ends up becoming significant, like significantly important. For me, it ends up being like when I get home and it's a really rough day and I just am stressed out and I'm sitting down and I'm watching football, she'll come and like cuddle next to me and just kind of almost hold me. Right. And some people are like, that feels weird. It's not. I feel it's like the most comfortable thing in that moment. And she could care less about football. She could care less. And she won't even talk. But now for me, it's like that physical connect there is like a knitting together, you know? And so I do think that there's a sense of wisdom that we have to embark on, especially in the dating context, to know how you're wired. And to the level that you're wired, you want to be careful and wise that in discernment, you don't step into types of activities and engagement that's going to start to open the door to a type of knitting and connectivity that is premature, right? I think the phrase is popping the clutch. You're kind of popping the clutch a little bit. And so I think that's where part of this complexity is, because as you've rightly pointed out, yes, it's sexual and it's also emotional.
Yeah.
And it's spiritual too.
But what's interesting is it doesn't take the other person's permission or compliance for you to knit and latch. Right? Because then I think about like porn and I just think about
that's a whole thing right there.
Right. But I'm like, it doesn't take your permission to say, yes, I'm also in this. Obviously, that might maybe accelerate.
Yeah, the porn one.
You can knit or latch.
Yeah, the porn one is interesting. If Jim were here, he would probably point out that the act of pornography is one of the most selfish things that we can do. Right? Yeah. So now you got me on the fly thinking about this in real time. So it's like, okay, are you knitting your soul to that figure that you're watching, right? Object. So I might say an unpopular opinion here, okay? Yeah. I don't know that that's what's happening in terms of a soul knitting there. I think it's actually the inverse, and I think it's a kind of damage to your own soul. So Jim makes this point that at the end of typically when you're watching pornography, I don't know how specific we can get here.
Get very specific.
Okay, so if you're watching pornography, typically there's also some act of self-pleasure that's happening as well.
Yeah.
The end of the pleasure is releasing chemicals in your body. That those chemicals in your body are actually attachment chemicals. It's supposed to attach you.
Right. It's like a mother holding a newborn after all that pain, the dopamine, the oxytocin.
100%. This is the same thing that's happening in sexual intimacy. Yep. At the end, the goal is that you're actually bonding together with each other at the end, right? Now think about pornography. At the end, can you bond with the device? No. What you're bonding with is the chemical response and the imagery, but it's actually reinforcing selfish pleasure.
Right.
So you're damaging your own soul
Right. Wow.
when you're doing that, which is actually going to compromise your ability to have a healthy soul bonding
Yeah.
with your spouse,
Right.
with your significant other, because you have in a way started to like almost tear apart and fracture your own soul in that process.
Reminds me of I can't quote it at all, but the C.S. Lewis about the harem within. He talks about this a lot when it comes
Yeah,
to
his
the
letter on
pornography.
masturbation.
Yeah, and well, I guess there was not pornography when he was writing.
Yeah,
that,
well,
but
the whole point, though, I mean,
the whole.
But even the
concept.
porneia, so like the Greek word porneia, it has in mind a sexualized environment, right? Which gets us into a huge topic. But it's sometimes people are like, man, it's so rough right now, because of access to. And sometimes I point out to people, I'm like, if you study the Roman world, I actually think the Romans had it better. And someone's like, well, how could you say
like
that?
sexually deviant, better.
I think they actually had it better. You know why? Because it was public.
Right.
It was
There was no
everywhere.
shame.
Yeah.
So at least it's out. Like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, I know,
Yeah.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Look at the deviousness and the deception of our
It's so-
society.
Yeah,
Now
like
it's so hidden.
Yes.
It's so hidden.
behind closed
Yeah.
doors.
They
Yes.
literally had lovers. Like your wife was like your property, it was
Yeah.
political. And everyone just walked around saying, oh, yeah, like you don't actually love her. That's why you have your prostitute or your lover.
Yeah,
or,
there's Lisa and I have a book with Jim coming out called Surviving an Unwanted Divorce. And I read a couple chapters in there. And one of them I talk about, Matthew 19, this like very important dialogue that Jesus ends up having with the Pharisees and Sadducees. And it's a weird thing because they're trying to catch him on divorce, the question of a divorce certificate. And the way that Jesus talks about it, he actually goes back to the creation story and he goes back to some of these verses, right? That these two become one flesh. And what he actually is doing is he's redefining the role and relationship of a man in relationship to the wife, to the woman. Because in the ancient world, adultery could only be a sin that the wife had done because she was already married, right? So a man technically could sleep with a woman that was not his wife, but as long as she wasn't married, it's not adultery.
Wow.
Which is wild.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Fornication,
Crazy.
yes, but not adultery.
Wow.
What Jesus does is he levels everything. He goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Dudes don't get a free pass on this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And so to your point, that's exactly what's happening. And again, it's pointing to the seriousness of the idea of who you're attaching to, how you're attaching to them, and the consequences of that attachment.
Well, and like you were saying, so back before we were talking, we segued into pornography. What you're also saying and what you're pointing out is we have to be careful as individuals. If I'm dating, I need to know myself and how I attach to somebody.
Right.
What forms a deep bonding for me. You know, we were just with Gary Chapman last week. Okay, you could talk about the 5 love languages. So physical touch, if you want to go there. Like if you know that physical intimacy or physical touch for you is really going to build some sort of deep connection, that might be something you have to be a little bit more aware of, more careful.
Yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
like third date be on the couch cuddling because that's probably going to be creating a bond for you versus somebody like me where, I'm really emotionally driven. Then me, which I used to do this in dating, I would just share all my history, all my things, get really bonded with somebody by both sharing, having them listen and hear me, maybe them sharing some of their story. And so for me, that created this deep emotional bond with men early on where I think we are so deeply bonded because of the emotional things I've then shared with them and that they've seemingly in the moment received well, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, Gary Chapman says the thing that makes him the most sad about the 5 love languages is that the most important love language he wanted you to know was your partner's. The most important love language for you in a marriage is your partner's, not yours. I would say, okay, the most important love language then in singleness is probably yours. Knowing what is your accelerator, what really knits you, what really makes you feel loved. And that's probably the one you need to be most cautious, that you need to steward the most sacredly in dating.
Yeah, I think wisdom and discernment is so key. And there's all kinds of opportunities for you to rationalize your decision making in the dating process. But the question is, what is the aim and the ambition? Right? And so you want to rationalize physical touch. You want to rationalize emotional connectivity. You want to, and so we'll rationalize it as like, no, we're like in a worship service and we just are like loving Jesus and holding hands and, and it's like, Well, don't forget the whole of a human is also spiritual.
Right.
So please don't undermine the fact that there are certain things that come to your spiritual life that as you're exposing them, it's actually creating a type of bond.
Yeah.
You know? And it's almost like I think one of the deceptions of the enemy is to suggest that the church is the safest place for you to be able to express yourself to, you know, like you're dating another Christian. So obviously you guys are going to be okay. Well, no. There's nothing obvious about that. You guys made me think of something. I work for Proverbs 31 Ministries, and so I'm like the guy, you know, in a women's ministry. There's like 7 of us now, but and I work with a lot of like amazing godly women, you know, and we've had different seasons of ministry life where one season everybody's getting married, right? It feels like there's just a whole group of people getting married. Then another season it's like, man, everybody's having kids right now. We just came off of that. Like I think 6 of our staff members just all had kids within like a 3-month period. It's
my goodness.
wild, right? It's awesome. But I remember getting asked a question once. We're in a therapy and theology episode, and it was like a question and answer. And the question was, Joel, when do you talk or ask about pornography? Like, when do you ask about that? And so this is going to go back to like that question of like knowing yourself, right? And so my response was like, if you're a girl and you're talking to a dude and you're in a dating relationship, probably not date 1 or 2, right?
Yeah.
You're probably not going right into all your sexual past and sexual history within those. And then the other problem is like you're exposing some stuff there that honestly is just unhealthy, right? Now, that doesn't mean you don't ever do it. You know, and once you get to a place where like, hey man, I think that there's something serious here. It is wise for you to know what you're walking into, right? If a guy says to you, I'm just going to be as straight and forward as I can. If a guy goes, I don't have a porn problem, I'm throwing up a red flag. I'm just throwing up a red flag. If they go like, I've never had any issues, or I'm like, you know, I'm just
exactly.
Red flag, dude. Red flag, you know?
We say the same thing.
I think that we have to have honesty in these areas and pay close attention to how they're talking, what they're saying. If they're struggling to find the right words to describe it, don't view that instantly as something like negative. Maybe view that as like, I'm trying to be honest, and this is a tough conversation, right? And give grace to each other, but assess. I'm more concerned if it's like no struggle at all. And it's like, well, you know, and then, and then you just want to be really wise with the way that you personally attach, because there has to be risk in the relationship where you're going to need to attach to higher degrees over time. So part of this is risk management. Right? So you want to be wise when you're opening yourself up to those things, realizing you're a human, I'm a human, you're a sinner, I'm a sinner. This thing could fall apart, right?
Tomorrow. Yeah, literally.
And you're still responsible for your actions and for the way that you go about it.
That's why we're the first episode of this season we're in was about pacing and boundaries. And we're very passionate about, hey, just Christians, we get excited. You know, especially if you're an older woman, you're seeing your biological clock, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we're like, I don't care your age. I don't care, you know, all I know is the best thing is to be wise about how you pace a dating relationship. You never hear people saying, I just so regret spending the extra few months getting to know them. But you hear the inverse completely. I really regret rushing into that marriage or not getting to know them and spending more time or asking more questions, because look at all these things that ended up coming out as a result of us rushing the process. Guys, if you have not heard of our mentorship program, the School of Dating, what are you even doing? We host the School of Dating mentorship program just a few times a year. And why do we only do it a few times a year? Because it's taught live. It's 16 sessions. It's intensive work. We go in deep, and it's going to change your dating life. We are on our 10th cohort at this point, and we have over 500 alumni. Actually, fun fact, a lot of our alumni are dating. But the cool news is, after doing this for almost 4 years, we now have so many people who have met their person through doing School of Dating. We even have a School of Dating baby, at least one that I know of, which is so exciting. And so our next cohort is starting this November. November 11th is the first session of class. And right now, you can sign up for School of Dating at our early bird pricing at the website if you go to joinschoolofdating.com. On the website, we have all the information. We have the full schedule so you can see all the details. We have testimonials so you can see how people have loved this program. And I also just want you to know, if you sign up to do this, it's an investment in yourself, but you are getting so much. You're getting me and JJ live in real time teaching you this program. You are getting an assigned coach, a dating coach that helps you throughout the entire process. And you're getting a community of men and women doing this alongside of you. And that community is so powerful and so transformative. So I want to invite you to this next cohort. It is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see the transformation that happens. So again, visit joinschoolofdating.com. And if you have a question, you can book a call with JJ. That's also on the website, and he's happy to chat with you. All right. Hope to see you in the program. So soul tie, and maybe this is what we're saying, probably the later and later you get in relationship, deeper relationship, there you probably are not going to be able to avoid that kind of bonding with somebody, especially emotionally and spiritually, even if you're avoiding a lot of different physical elements of the relationship. So if that ends 8 months into dating in a relationship, what do you like? I mean, that's not natural for us to like have that break up, which as you brought up the friendship piece, it made me think of a friendship breakup I almost had that felt almost more devastating than heartbreaks I had been through because of how much bonding there had been in that friendship.
Yeah.
And so what do these people do when they're faced with, I have this tie to this person?
Yeah.
How do I process that and move through that when this didn't end up being my spouse? And I thought maybe it was going to be.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we're talking about emotional here, but I think it's fine to include the physical and sexual back into this, because I have a suspicion there's a good amount of people that have either already crossed that threshold and now they're trying to like retract and try to figure out how to still live a holy life in that relationship, or maybe it's past stuff that they've had you know, and now they're walking into a new relationship and they've got the baggage of that they're holding on
that
to.
That was me.
That's me and Britt. Britt never kissed anybody until me.
Wow.
I know.
Amazing.
When we got married, like I was like, you know, well, we had kissed before we had gotten married, but like I was her first kiss when she did, you know, when we were engaged and we kissed. And so like my story is not that at all.
Yeah.
And so I carried a lot of baggage, a lot of weight into our first 2 years of marriage were honestly like really hard, you know, because of a lot of the stuff that I had brought into it. So I want to talk about two things. One is the fact of something and the other is the impact of something. And so the fact of, let's say you've already had sex or you've already, crossed that physical threshold that you didn't want to, and it has created some kind of knitting at a deeper level. And now that relationship like is done.
Yeah.
What do you do? So I don't want to neglect the power of repentance and confession, of prayer, of having a good community around you that is safe, that you can just like verbalize and say, hey, this is what happened. And I think about David, Psalm 51, Lord, create in me a new heart. You know, this isn't a renovated heart. This is like, I need a heart transplant.
Right.
Like I need a brand new heart. And there's something beautiful about being able to do that in a safe space with some people that love Jesus more than they love you. I said it the exact way I wanted to say that. They love Jesus more than they love you. And so then you can have the fact of that thing that you've addressed, but that does not mean that there is not the impact of that thing that has to continually be addressed. And this is where I don't have any easy answers for people, but I just have an honest answer, and it takes time. It takes time to consistently, actively, intentionally bring the impact of what has happened back to the feet of Jesus. Rehearse the truths of Scripture over your life. Memorize verses of the Bible. Be honest in your journaling process and trust that the Holy Spirit is going to continue to create and renovate your heart in the way that is going to be healing for you, and recognize that this is part of the journey of sanctification. We're becoming conformed into the likeness, into the image of Jesus. And so on the one hand, you have confess, you've repented, you've been like, man, I blew it in this area. That's the fact of it. That thing is done. The Lord's forgiven you. Like you're good, right? So live from the victory of Jesus on the cross, not from the shame that the enemy is trying to scream over your head. Live from the victory of the cross. And and recognize that there's still an impact to our sin.
Mm-hmm.
There's still an impact. I think about this often with my kids. I've got a 14, 12, and 10-year-old. And with my 14-year-old, I had my first conversation with him that just said like, hey, bud, like dad didn't do all the right things. It was really hard.
Mm.
Really hard to begin to have a conversation with my son about not whys, and but like I didn't treat women the way that I should have treated them, and like because now this is impact for me. I'm almost 40 years old, you guys. Been married for 16 years, and I've got a 14-year-old son, and I want him to view women and cherish them, and part of that is to expose my area of failure as an act of like example and witness of one, the redemptive work of God, but two, you don't have to go down that path.
Yeah.
So and so for me, it's like, oh, I'm right now dealing with the impact of long past sin, right? Fact of it is dealt with, but the impact of it is like, I never in my wildest dreams in that moment imagined I'd be dealing with
feeling that impact.
Right.
Yeah,
with my 14-year-old son.
Yeah.
Yes.
You just
and
can't
so
fathom the impact.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's an aspect of it that's just honesty. In my book, The Hidden Peace, there's this quote by John Stott, and I kind of paraphrased it, but Stott says that humility and honesty go together. And I was kind of like, you know what? If humility and honesty go together, then pride and insanity absolutely go together as well. And so the more we're committed to pride, selfish ambition, we think it's going to bring clarity and help in our life. It's not. Yeah. It's going to actually make us go insane. Wow. And so the best option is humility.
Amen. Let's go. So in closing, as we talk about soul ties, so would you say it's a good term to use to describe the connection with or without sexuality of bonding between humans? And the caution would be knowing your knitting language, how you knit really well with others, be liberal with it with those trusted friends who are like your life friends, your pallbearers, your 3 or 4, right? Yeah. Amazing. And then for that opposite sex romantic adventure that you want to embark on, steward it, be wise with it, let it build on its own over time, right? Hopefully with one person. That's like, I guess that's a hope, but I think the reality is that we're probably going to do this by mistake many times until we grow and mature. Yeah. And would you say the more you reserve for marriage, the better?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, physically. You know, there's the only thing I can promise you is a high level of complexity and challenge. The further you go on the physical side of things, the emotional and spiritual aspect of it, I think, takes testing. It takes like in the moment discernment. And this is probably the best advice I ever got when Bert and I were first getting married. I had a pastor who was mentoring us, him and his wife, Pastor Bob and LaDonna, we love you. He said to me, hey, pick 3 couples in your life. One, they're like grandparents, empty nesters. You look at their kids, and their kids don't even have to be perfect. Their kids could be like knuckleheads or whatever, but do they still talk to their parents? Like, do they still they have grandkids that still want to hang with them? Right. And with them, like, be willing, they're going to probably want to be in bed by 6 p.m. So, right. Like, so roll up at 3, like, just do what you need to do. Right. And then you want to find another couple that's like in your same space. Like you're, and they can just be a safe, like, man, you're dealing with this, we're dealing with this. And then find another couple that is just a little bit ahead of you, And so for Brent, I was like, who's just now having kids, and Pastor Bob was like, with them, just show up to their house with a bunch of pizzas, with a bunch of food, right? Don't expect too much from them. Just be there to serve them and hang out and play with the kids, and you absorb by what's around, So and that was just such good wisdom for me to just think about that. And in that, it created some safety. It helped me to, and Britt, to kind of mature with our own connection points. And we had some mile markers that we had in front of us that we were able to honestly see and evaluate. So we knew kind of where we were going. And I kind of knew pretty clearly. I was like, she's the one for me. Like, we're all in on this.
So you guys did that in dating, you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
we're like, Yeah. Towards like, I knew probably when I knew we were about to get engaged.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm very
So
intentional
wise.
for
Yes.
this.
Let's go.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
And
go,
then in
man.
terms of should we use the phrase or not, I would just say this, like with everything else, it's gonna sound like I'm tiptoeing or tip dancing. What is the phrase? Tap dancing?
Tiptoeing.
Tiptoeing. I love mixing metaphors, so I just did that.
Tip dancing.
Yeah, I started tip dancing all over the place. I would say that phrases are only as good as long as they don't damage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're using the phrase soul ties, but you're weaponizing them against people, or you're
Yeah.
weaponizing against yourself, just erase it.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. It's unhelpful, right? But if it gives you like a helpful way to categorize this idea
Yeah.
of connectivity and a type of bonding, then that's awesome,
Yeah.
right? But whatever you do, root it back in the biblical text. Go back to the scriptures and ask yourself, is this helping me or is this harming me? Is this creating fruitful, healthy relationships in my life, or is it creating undue stress?
Yeah.
And part of this is self-restraint. You might feel free to use the phrase and terminology, but you might have a close friend that feels super stressed out and feels it as if it's like this overbearing weight on them.
Right.
Man, be kind to that person and use restraint,
Mm-hmm.
use different language. And I think that it'll help the both of you in the long run.
So
Amen,
good.
man. Let's go. That was
I love
one
this
of my
episode.
favorite episodes
This is
of all time.
I want to ask Joel so many other questions, but I feel like we don't have time.
We'll have him back.
I want to ask you about
Maybe.
aliens and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the fun other random subjects.
So fun, man. Well, you're my favorite Instagram follow. What's your handle?
It's super easy and kind of hard. It's at my last name, Mudamalle. So at Muddamalle. I've got a Substack called Humble Theology.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm kind of more committed, I feel like, to my Substack these days because I feel like long form content like needs to be great again.
Yeah.
It's super
Yeah,
cheesy, but
all we have is sound bites, and it's so hard to really
Make
get our
long-form
point
content great
across
again.
in a caption.
I'm telling you, there's a whole different episode. And
You
then
have like a red hat with MLCGA.
make long form content
Great again.
Yeah.
I love it. And then I have a new book on spiritual warfare that comes out in
So good.
January of next year. It's
Let's
available
go.
for pre-order now. It's
What
called
is it?
The Unseen Battle.
Let's go.
Unseen
I
Battle.
can't
So
wait.
it's
And
The
there will be
Unseen
a
Battle.
subpart about aliens in that book.
There is a part. We can talk about this
Yes.
next time. So it's
Yeah.
the Unseen Battle, spiritual warfare, the three rebellions, and Christ's victory over dark powers.
Let's
So
go.
good.
And I get into like ayahuasca and DMT and Ouija
Ayahuasca,
boards.
no
and
way. Oh my gosh.
all
this
of this
is
stuff.
great. Oh my gosh. What do you need to do for me if I did a Ouija board in high school? Do I need to break that off right now?
I would say that you're covered in the blood of Jesus.
Okay.
And you are.
Tell me.
You want to view. So
that
this is
true?
this is so
I did a
important.
Ouija board one time in like middle school or high school. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely
just
something
being
there, but
honest.
but honestly, like, yeah, you're covered by the blood of Jesus, like
Yeah.
the victory of the cross, Now, also the wildest thing in Atlanta, where I was going shopping with my kids, in the front, like display case, public, out in front of everybody, was like, buy one, get one free Ouija boards.
What?
I was shook. Absolutely shook.
I feel like I never see them anymore, but it depends where you are, I guess.
I guess.
Wow.
But
Okay.
that's what I'm
Wild.
working on.
So the Unseen World coming out in January.
can't wait.
The
Amazing.
Unseen Battle.
Unseen Battle.
I mean,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
no, it could be the Unseen World
because of
too.
aliens. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
it could be the
sorry.
Unseen
I'm
World
not
I mean, that
doing it.
works.
I'm
All I
good.
think about is aliens.
I need to check with the publisher if it's too late to change the title because
Unseen
I feel like that's what the probably title should be. The Unseen Battle.
Unseen World.
Love you,
Unseen
bro.
Battle.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. You're amazing. The Heart of Dating podcast is created by Kate and JJ Tomlin. Shout out to our epic audio and video editor, Scott Caro. We have an amazing Heart of Dating team who helps bring the show to you each week. I want to shout out Lena Gibson, our brand and community manager. We couldn't do it without them. Now, if you guys have never ranked us or reviewed us on iTunes or Spotify, would you consider doing that? It would mean so much because our podcast can get more discovered and more people can learn how to better date as Christians. Don't we all want that? We launch our podcast each and every week on Wednesdays, so we will see you next week.